Welcome to the Inspiring Veterans Podcast with your host, Gary Rohmann. In each episode of the Inspiring Veterans Podcast, veterans coach Gary Rohmann invites veterans and professionals who support veterans to discuss the process of transitioning out of armed service into civilian society. The Inspiring Veterans Podcast aims to answer the question, what's next? You can find the show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, GaryRohmann.com. Now here's the host of the Inspiring Veterans Podcast, your host, Gary Rohmann.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to my podcast, and I'm very excited to introduce our guest, Atif Khan. Atif has a very distinguished career in the United States Navy. Atif, according to I actually have your resume. According to your resume, you entered 2007. Is that correct?
No, I actually joined the Navy in 1995.
Okay, I'm sorry. How did I miss that? Yes. Well, I see at the top of your resume. You're right. And you got out in 2022.
That is correct.
Yes. So one of the reasons why I really wanted to have Atif on the podcast is that Atif and I had the opportunity back in 2019 to work together. I was his coach. He was in the Honor Foundation program. And we were together, I think, from August to November. That's about 5 or 6 months. But during that time, I really got to know Atif. And he's indeed a tremendous man. A lot of wisdom in many ways. So, Atif, tell me, we haven't talked in a few years, unfortunately. Since you got out in 2022, how have things been? How's the transition been?
Well, the initial transition was tough. I'm sure a lot of people who spend majority of their adult life and professional life in the military are completely different to a different battle rhythm, different type of people they're surrounded by. And when they retire and go to the civilian world or the corporate world, it is completely different. And I had to experience that shock myself. So the things that I learned, there's a long list of things that I learned. One of the things is start early, plan early. And when I say early, I mean start going out and seeing what communities are there, what organizations are there that help veterans. Go face to face, meet people, and learn as much as you can. Because the reality is every service member is in a different situation. You know, everybody has a different background, different talents, different experiences. So there's no one formula that will fit for everybody. So the biggest thing is connecting and making a network. Yes, LinkedIn is great. Yes, all the website and all that stuff is great, but you have to go out and see your local chapter, see what's going on around the area where you are. I'll give you an example here in San Diego area, Veterans Beer Club. It's a great organization. It's just a bunch of veterans meeting once a month at an establishment. Usually it's paid. The establishment is operated by one of the veterans to support the veteran business and bring in veterans together to help each other out, anywhere from giving business ideas and how to start a business to, hey, here are the companies, HR people that are looking for these type of jobs. And you can sometimes meet the HR people right there and exchange the cards and get an inside scoop on, hey, this company is hiring for this type of positions, and what do you have? And you kind of can make your case in front of an HR at a very relaxed environment.
Well, I've heard about the Veterans Beer Club a number of times. Unfortunately, I haven't been to one, so I got it on my list of to-do things here. And they usually hold those at the end of the month, toward the end of the month. Is that correct?
No, it depends on their schedule and when they can get a reservation at the site, because it goes from brewery to brewery, a place to place, anywhere from San Diego and Barrio Logans all the way up to, Oceanside. So they have different locations that they go to.
So they would imagine they publish the date on their LinkedIn
Yes.
page. Yeah. Okay.
They have Instagram, they have a LinkedIn, they're also on Facebook, and I believe they have different chapters too now in different cities.
That's correct. Yeah, they do. So, Adolf, I want to ask you a question. You have gone throughout your history is so unique. So you were in the military or the Navy, 27 years, right?
Close to 27, yes. 26 and a half.
So you made a number of transitions. When your parents, can you give us a little insight on the transition you had as a teenager or as a kid when your parents relocated?
Yes. So I was born in Pakistan, grew up in Saudi Arabia, and after graduating high school in Saudi Arabia, I went back to Pakistan to do my bachelor's in accounting. And halfway through, we had an opportunity to come to America, so we did. And I was going to say about 2-3 weeks later, my parents went back and left me and my brother here in America, saying, hey, go to college, follow your dreams. And
how old
what's
were
up?
You then?
So I had just turned 20, and my younger brother had just turned 19.
Wow.
And we were supposed to go to college. We took the entrance exam, but the summer semester was already started, so we had to wait for the fall semester. So we both of us just got a part-time job and just kind of waiting around. And one day my brother walks in and tells me I'm going to join the Navy. And I asked him, what are you talking about? I'm going to join the Navy. He's like, well, I met this guy at the store, and he said, if you join the Navy, you get to travel the world and they pay for your college. Now, mind you, we got here in April of 95. This conversation is happening maybe June of 95. And I'm like, well, how serious are you about joining? He's like, well, I'm very serious. And I was like, okay, I guess if you're going to join, I'm going to join with you because I don't know anybody else in this world, so might as well do it together. And the same morning, we walked into the recruiter's office, and he had this big old smile on his face saying that I got 2 for 1. And in the September of same year, we were in boot camp. So here we are, barely speak English. I mean, we learned English as a second language. We understand and everything, but having a conversation, especially in American slang, is completely different. So here we are in boot camp getting yelled at, trying to learn the language, English, then the Navy language, and the Navy culture, and the American culture, all while we're getting yelled at. So it was a pretty intense transition from being a civilian and being in the military of a country that you don't know anything about. So
that's an amazing story. And then, one of the reasons we met at the Honor Foundation was because of the level of your service. You were I guess you call it an enabler, but you work directly with special forces. You were an interpreter. Is that correct?
So I was involved in a program that we recruited. We recruited international students that grew up in a certain region and knew certain languages, and we trained them. And once we trained them, then we would deploy them in support of teams for whatever operation they were going for. So, from my background, since I was born in Pakistan, grew up in Saudi Arabia, I spoke Urdu, Pashto, Punjabi languages, and so I helped them build that program. And we deployed a lot of those candidates. We called them LREs, language and regional experts. They're a lot more than just the interpreter. They become their eyes and ears of the team that's in that country, because the reality is anytime they go to a different country, they can't read any signs, they can't read the newspaper, and any communication that they pick up on the radio, they can't understand. So that LRE becomes their eyes and ears.
That's amazing. And I've heard, as we were working together, you shared some other experiences, which we don't have time to discuss, but you've had an amazing journey. And you're a tremendous individual. So I know one of the things we worked on during the Honor Foundation experience, we worked on your resume and different things, and you developed your why statement, what we call the why statement. And if I recall, I got it written down here. And the one you wrote was to be a servant leader with steady hands so that people can realize their potential. Why are you smiling?
Because I'm doing the exact same thing right now in my current job.
Well, so tell us, what are you doing right now?
So I work at Buds. So the attrition rate at Buds and the Swig School is approximately around 80%. So the students that drop out of the training pipeline, I sit them down and I help them find a different job in the Navy. So as a servant leader, I'm sitting them down and trying to find out what they're good at, what they want to do, and help them realize that, hey, there are these opportunities in the Navy for them that they can pursue. And if they want to come back, they're more than welcome to come back and try again. But for right now, this is the new pathway they need to follow to advance.
Well, so you're a contractor, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I've been reading. I know the Navy's had some challenges with their recruiting. I saw where a number of ships were put on the sidelines, you might say, because of the lack of sailors or qualified sailors. So you're helping that effort, right?
I am. We're doing, they call it talent management, which is trying to find the highest caliber candidate and get them the important jobs that are vacant right now.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, I did not serve, and my connection to the military is through my dad, and he was in our Air Force for 23 years. And, many times I wish I, had joined, but there were so many things going on as a teenager, and, sometimes your decisions impact the path you take. So I never had the opportunity to join. But tell me, when you also, one other challenge I know you had, I hope it's okay to mention it, but you had some health issues, right?
I had a lot of health issues, yes. And that was one of the reasons that I decided to leave. I could have stayed a little longer, but because of the health issues, I just needed to get out and kind of focus on the health and see if I can get a little better. And fortunately, I did get better. And unfortunately, things went kind of sideways again, but everything is fine.
That's wonderful. I mean, I know what you were experiencing, and it was. I don't know how you were able to maintain your functionality, but you did. In the midst of all that, you must have a high endurance for pain.
Well, that's the part of the military. You know, the mission comes first, job comes first. You're responsible for your sailors, and you know you need to do what needs to be done. So you just wake up with that mindset and get everything done.
So you mentioned at the very beginning that some of this, one of your suggestions for those getting out is to start early, right?
Yes.
All right. What other things? And I think the other thing that I got out of it is, networking is key. Um, Networking on internet is one thing, but internet networking in person is so much more powerful. Would you agree with that?
Definitely, most definitely. And if you're in a big metropolitan area, especially if there's a lot of military bases, it's a lot easier to find those networks and those organizations that help veterans compared to if you're in a place where there are no military bases and, you know, it's hard to find. But where there's a will, there's a way. You can always search and find a group.
Gotcha. Any other advice?
Well, earlier you mentioned my why statement. You know, I think everybody should start with that why of why they want to do what they want to do. Because I have friends that did, you know, were in one career their entire life in aviation, but when they retired, they didn't want anything to do with aviation, and they went completely different route. You know, I've had people who worked on aircrafts for 20 plus years, and when they retired, they went and became a registered nurse. And when I talked to him, they're happy as clam because guess what? They felt like they were burned out from doing that one job for so long and they needed a change. So yes, while you're doing the networking and you're talking to people, you have to kind of do self-evaluation of what do I actually like? Is that something that I want to pursue? Yes, you have an upper hand if you stay in the same field because you've been doing that job for so long. You have the experience, you have the knowledge. And if you're going to change your career, and a lot of people who are retiring, I would say, you know, it'll be their second career in middle age. They have to take in consideration that how it's going to affect their financial and their family life. So there's a lot more to consider.
I recall that, and of course, I'm still doing my work that I did when we met. A lot of times when military professionals are getting out, they got so many things going on. They have so many decisions they got to make. Where they're going to live, all the paperwork associated with getting out. And many times they do not think about what they want. They don't think about long term. They want to get a job and they feel like they need to get that job pretty quickly because just to make sure they don't run out of money or get in a tough situation. But they take a job just to have a job, and long term it's just not going to be successful.
So a few years back I read this article, and this says that when military people retire, on average, they quit their first job within a year.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and I was one of the statistics, but in my case, I didn't quit. I was let go because the company was downsizing. But nonetheless, within 12 months, most likely you have to get a different job.
That was after you got out? You went through
that? That is after I got out, yes.
Wow.
And one of the other networking and learning places, VTS, Veterans Transition Services. It's also here in San Diego area. I think it's more up north. I can't remember. I want to say in Escondido area to be exact. And that's a great place because they teach cost-free classes for safety, OSHA safety classes. They do what you call it, green belt, yellow belt for Lean Six Sigma, and they also help with resume writing and interview practice if you need some, and a lot of us do.
So that's the Veteran Transition Services.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard of them. I mean, that's an excellent recommendation for sure, because project management especially can take you a lot of different areas, and companies need. That's one thing that companies really, I believe, are in need of, people that can think in those terms. So at this point, what do you see in the future right now, Adolf? If you are you looking ahead, or are you just taking a day at a time now?
So I'm thinking ahead because I'm thinking about doing something that I wanted to do a long time ago. As I mentioned, when I was in Pakistan, I did half of my bachelor's in accounting, and joining the Navy and being in aviation and doing other jobs in aviation, in the military for 20 plus years. Now that I'm out and I have some free time on my hand, I'm thinking about maybe going back to school and studying accounting. I'm still thinking about it. It's, nothing is a done deal. You got to do some research and we'll go from there, see what happens.
I remember you telling me, there's a couple things that I went back through your file and all of our different meetings, and one of the things you said, never give up on your hopes and dreams. And I think the other thing you said to me is live like you mean it. And those two statements really they're pretty, when you think about them, profound. A lot of people don't live their life like they mean it. They kind of coast around, and unfortunately, then they find themselves in a position where life doesn't have as much meaning as it should.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's different. You have to listen to yourself of what interests you.
That's right. And so you're going back to look at accounting or strengthen your knowledge base, possibly. I know another attribute you have, and that's helping people start their business. And you gave me some advice as I've been trying to expand my business. So, I think you have a number of options you could pursue. Have you done any more business work?
Oh, I have not. I have not. I've been just kind of finally letting my hair down and enjoying the work. It's after a long time in a job like this, when I go home, I don't have any homework. I don't have to worry about doing any presentation. I don't have to worry about doing anybody's, evaluations. I don't have to plan ahead. It's just you work from, 7 to 4, 7 to whatever. And once you're done, you're done. Nobody's calling you that, hey, this person got in trouble, or nobody's calling you, that this person missed their flight, or they're not where they're supposed to be, or they didn't show up for a watch.
Yeah.
So it's less stress.
So as you've got such a rich history in the things you pursue, things you've overcome. As you look, if you were to kind of look at your life, can you identify one or two things that you're the most proud of?
I think one thing that I'm very proud of is making the best of the situation. Because the reality is, in life, 20% of your life is what happens to you. The 80% is how you react to it. You know, that everybody has a plan, everybody wants to do, but what happens when the plans fall through? What happens when it doesn't happen, when it doesn't materialize? You know, what are your options? Are you smart enough? Are you thinking about, okay, if this doesn't work out, what do I do next? Kind of thing. So that is one thing that helped me throughout my life, through all those transition stages and phases that I went through, from moving from one country to the other country, one continent to another continent, going from civilian life to military life. And even in military, you have different communities, and every community has its own way of doing things. So even when you change community within the Navy, there's an adjustment period.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So if there's one thing consistent in life, is change.
Yeah, for sure. That's for sure. Well, we're approaching the end here, Atif. We need to get together again and have some coffee together. You got the same phone number, right?
Yes.
I'm going to be reaching out to you. Would you be open to having to get together here soon?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, listen, Atif, I really can't thank you enough for being a guest on my podcast show. You've given some great insight and some good ideas for those that are in the process of transitioning out. And if it's all they have to do is take action, then that's the key. Take action. Don't procrastinate. So thank you again, Atif. And any last comments you'd like to make before we call it a close?
Well, when you're transitioning, don't think you're alone. Okay? A lot of people think that they're alone, they're by themselves, nobody understands, nobody knows. But guess what? You're not the first or the last person who's gone through this process. There are plenty of them that has gone. And one of the things, if you are lucky enough to have a family, a wife, a brother, a sister, or somebody, or even close friends, lean on them, rely on them, and talk to them to go through this process, because it can be very taxing. It can be depressing, because a lot of times in job hunts, what happens is you send out, 20, 30 resumes, and you might hear back from maybe 2 or 3 people, 2 or 3 companies. So your success rate is very low, and it starts affecting your psyche. So rely on the people around you, rely on the group, the network that you have of close friends and family. So, and thank you for having me on this webcast. So,
wow. It's so good to see you, sir. And I'll be reaching out to you here soon, and we can kind of catch up over a cup of coffee.
All right. Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Bye.
You've been tuning into the Inspiring Veterans Podcast with your host, Gary Rohmann. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, GaryRohmann.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.